Welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice, musician turned entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave Homes and 6th Ave Storytelling. Over the past 10 years, I have launched multiple successful businesses and have become obsessed with all things entrepreneurship and marketing. I've been on a personal quest to unpack what it takes to make and grow a great brand. One thing that I've discovered is that stories are powerful and that storytelling has the power to set a brand apart. Join me as I dive into the stories of the heavy-hitting leaders, entrepreneurs, artists, and business owners in our community to hear their biggest wins, greatest losses, and their best business secrets. There's a story behind every great brand. Welcome to Stories with Soul. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. We help small businesses grow by crafting and sharing their stories, because when small business thrives, cities and communities prosper. Stories with Soul is brought to you by the Fort Worth Business Press, your source for news and business information in and around Fort Worth. Sign up for the Business Press's twice daily newsletter or become an insider using the storytelling coupon code STORYTELLING10, all one word, to stay up to date with the people, companies, and issues that matter most to Fort Worth. Head to fortworthbusiness.com to subscribe. I am a huge fan of the Business Press. I've been a subscriber for years. It keeps me up to date with everything that is going on in Fort Worth. Love it. Go subscribe for the newsletter. You won't regret it. All right, guys, welcome to Stories with Soul. I am your host, Jamie Ice. I'm joined by my co-host,
Jimmy Williams.
And today we have a very special guest, Lou Lambert. Okay, you have quite the bio. I'm about to rattle off.
All right, I'll correct you.
So a restaurateur, an entrepreneur, a chef, and you have several side hustles, which we're going to dive into as well.
Yes.
But Lou is the founder, the creator of Lambert's Downtown Barbecue in Austin, Joe's Hot Coffee, Dutch's Hamburgers here in town, Lambert's Steak and Seafood, which was at Fort Worth Institution for a while. Killer place. Roy Pope Grocers, the Harris Coffee Shop you're redoing right now, Lou's Bodega in Austin.
You have done your research, Jamie. I like this.
We're not even done yet. You are also a partner and partner and investor and culinary genius behind a lot of killer hotels. Your sister is a hotel.
Correct.
But the San Jose, the El Cosmico in Marfa, Hotel San Cristobal and Todos Santos, the St. Cecilia, Hotel Magdalena. Well,
Jamie, I'm worn out. I need to sleep
but you've
more.
done this all. This is. You've been featured in Bon Appetit magazine, Food and Wine, Southern Living, the New York Times. You also have a cookbook, Big Ranch, Big City.
Correct.
I'm impressed, man. Am I missing anything?
If I listen to this, I'm going, dang.
I mean, that's why
I need to retire.
Yeah. But that's why I wanted to meet you. I mean, like that's pretty crazy. It's really, really cool.
Thank you.
So I have a confession.
Yes.
So part of the reason for doing this podcast was, one, I wanted to inspire people and give people proximity to people who are doing neat things like yourself. And selfishly, there's also kind of like a selfish motive. There was a few people that I didn't know that I would love to have a conversation with this person. You are one of those people where I have I'm kind of a fanboy. I've been a fan for a while, but we've never met.
And it's crazy being both in Fort Worth that we haven't, because we run in the same circles. Like you just told me this morning that you missed me by an hour at a kid's birthday party yesterday.
Literally yesterday.
Yeah.
But when I started, I was like, one of the first people I want to sit down with is Lou Lambert. I've never met him. I'm a fan. I would just love. So part of the reason for me starting this was to get you in this seat today, and I'll tell you why. Like I think I sort of knew who you were, but Jimmy and I bought a building that you were the original owner of, the 411 on South Main. And I remember that the first time, I guess you sold it to Craig Kelly, who's a friend of ours. But the first time he was like, I want to show you guys this project I just got. And we walked in to this 20,000 square foot warehouse, and I felt like I was transported It did not feel like Fort Worth. It was. You had done you just made this magical place that felt like Austin or West Texas, and then two, there was like you had all these motorcycles and classic cars and like sports cars, and then you had all this like there were like weights and woodworking, and there was all these like deer heads everywhere.
It was the ultimate man cave.
Well, it didn't start out being that way. One of my side hustles is real estate.
Okay.
And the other one is woodworking, and my partner is a gearhead. So we needed a place when we got to Fort Worth to do all this. So I combined all of those interests, and we found this old warehouse on the south side. And this is before the life
boom
came back into the south side. And I went, Fort Worth has nowhere to grow but south.
Yeah.
And I was going, this is a solid real estate investment. And even if it's not, it's a great space. So we spent about 5 years just kind of renovating that. And then the Baker machine shop back behind me, I'd become buddies with Buddy Baker, who was, I think, close to 90 years old and had grown up in that machine shop. And he said, I'm thinking of selling this property. And I said, Buddy, I've got too much square footage now. He said, I want you to have this. So we, over the course of a year, struck a deal, and I bought that property and combined them together.
And you were living there too, right?
Well, when we were building our house, contractors will lie to you, Jamie. Contractors will lie to you. So we had sold our house in Ryan Place, and so we were homeless for 6 months until our house was finished. So we converted the office space at Baker Machine Shop into a little studio apartment.
And it was super fun.
It was us, 4 dogs.
I remember the dogs. But you also like, there were these like crazy, y'all grilled pigs, like whole hogs. And there were these like, these giant contraptions and fire pits. When we went in, I was like, got goosebumps because I'm like, I don't know what's happening. The woodworking, the pig grilling, the dogs,
It was like a vacation. It was like you walked into a vacation.
And then there was like succulents. You were growing all these like agaves and stuff.
And it had a ramp so you could drive vehicles up into your house, if you will.
Well, and you had vehicles in there. There's always some different.
There's a huge lift, like a
giant lift.
Yeah. How many guys have their own personal car lift?
Yeah.
James Smith does. Our partner. So, but it was a great magical place. We loved being there. But at the end of the day, it was crazy to hold on. And my initial intent was real estate investment. And that whole South Side started going. People started knocking on the door. I want to buy this. And we're going, not yet.
Mm-hmm.
And finally I went, this is crazy. We've got to move to another location because the intent was to flip it after a few years.
Yeah.
But it was a great space.
And you threw parties there?
We would throw parties for 150 people.
Yeah.
We'd have stage, lighting, sound system, the outdoor patio. We could do food for 150. It was just a great
pigs. And stuff.
Pigs.
But that's what I was like. And we never met. I was like, I have to meet this guy. Jimmy was like, "Mom, we got to buy this building because it's so cool." And I was like, I am now obsessed with this guy that's doing all this crazy stuff.
But I would say that that was the inspiration. It's like you throwing those parties. Like, I mean, we heard the backstory. And Lou did this, Lou did this, Lou did this, and that was kind of the inspiration of what led us. Like, okay, this could be an event space. This could be do this. We could do this with this space because you already kind of laid that framework, and that's kind of why we bought it.
And I think the other thing that I loved about it was it just had style. I think especially for Fort Worth, like you have it's like this extreme macho hunting, burning pigs, motorcycles, but then also coupled with really cool taste and really cool style, which I like. For me, I love both of those.
I think part of that comes from just my background of being a creative, and that's what chefs are. And
so you would identify as a creative, like
because if you think about or I identify as a chef, even though I do 100 different things, but deep down I'm a chef.
Okay.
And to me, a chef it's art. It's like you're a musician. You write and perform songs. There's painters. There's writers who I have the utmost respect for. Writers or people that can put words on paper. But my creative is coming up with food, and instead of painting one painting, I repeat that day after day after day.
Yeah.
So, and that's the problem with most chefs. It's the beautiful thing is they're artists. The bad side is most artists are terrible business people.
Yeah. I know that from music world. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm fortunate to be one of those guys that can kind of navigate in both worlds, that I can read a P&L and I can be creative.
So perfect segue.
Yes.
How the heck did you get to that? So you're like a seventh generation. I did some research last night.
Yep.
Seventh generation ranching family. You grew up in Odessa. Your family has cattle ranches. So how did you go from I'm in Odessa to you and your sister are very like forerunners in culture. You were like you said with South Maine. You were like an early adapter there. White settlement where like you were one of the first here. Even in Austin, like you have historically sort of been a taste maker, creative but also successful.
But
So take me back to like the beginning. You grew up in this ranching family. How does
grow up in Odessa, Texas?
Yeah.
Ranching culture, oil and gas culture, kind of rough and tumble. That was the expectation. Expectation was you get out of high school, you go to college, preferably TCU, because my grandfather went to TCU in 1915. Both parents, 11 cousins. 1915 played football at TCU.
Wow, that's
my
cool.
father played football at TCU under Dutch Myers in the early 50s.
Wow.
My older brother played football at TCU. And my grandfather, we're fortunate, paid for all his grandkids, 11 grandkids, to go to college. But the expectation was...
Did you play football?
No, the heck with that. I played Permian, and I said, I'm tired of getting my butt kicked.
Yeah.
But the expectation was you did at least one semester at TCU.
No way.
So we all
did. That's a cool legacy.
But my problem was I went to TCU, and as my father would say, they're going to give you a gold watch and retire you rather than a diploma. I had been there a little too long, so I went to UNT. But anyway, so that was your expectation. And then you find a profession, lawyer, oil and gas, something very conventional, but I was always intrigued with the art of dining. And growing up in West Texas, kind of the big hotel was the Lincoln Hotel.
Okay.
And back in those days, every small town had a fine hotel with a good restaurant. And that was the gathering spot. So I was always fascinated to go to the Lincoln Hotel with my grandfather. That's where the men would go and have lunch, conduct business in the lobby, smoking big cigars.
Yeah. Okay.
But they had a fine dining restaurant, and I was just intrigued. It was like going to church, white tablecloth, the waiters in a jacket, the steps of service, and I was just intrigued with that. So when I
what's your earliest memory of like being there? Were you like middle school or elementary school? Or
probably middle school.
Okay.
But after church, we would probably every other Sunday eat at the Inn of the Golden West.
Okay.
And it was just intrigued me. But so when I got to college, I got jobs in restaurants.
So going into college, did you know like I want to do something with food?
It intrigued me, so I thought I'm going to get a job in a restaurant.
Okay. And what did your family say?
Well, I didn't tell them. It was if I had run off and joined the circus or something.
Because I'm assuming if you're a ranching family, they're like you're going to take over the family business one day.
You're going to do something other than
we're paying you to go to TCU, which is expensive.
But remember, during that time, it was before Food TV and the big food magazines, and so it was. If you were, I don't know, joining the military, it wasn't the proper thing.
It's like running off to play music.
Yeah. Thank you.
It feels like you were stepping down, like into this.
And exactly. So,
but you knew in your heart, you're like, I kind of want to do this.
But no, after I got into it, I went, this is my tribe. These are my people, and it's the fast paced.
Yeah.
It's the artistic part of it. It's the people that are drawn to hospitality. And so I was just intrigued by it. And floundered at TCU. I would always get
What were you studying?
Marketing.
Marketing, okay.
So always had a side job, restaurant, bartending. I loved the culture of it.
Okay.
So finally, the folks went, this enough is enough.
This episode of Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling. At 6th Ave Storytelling, we know that stories aren't just for bedtime, they're powerful marketing tools, and we've seen what they can do. Want to see for yourself? Download our free PDF, The Storytelling Pathway, on our website, 6avstorytelling.com. It's everything your business needs to be successful. This is what I've used to grow my businesses and hundreds of others. It's a strategy that has led to #1 albums, built large followings, and has helped generate millions of dollars in revenue, thousands of leads, and tons of traffic. I've seen client after client reach their goals, which is why I'm crazy excited to share it with you today. I'm offering this for free because it's my personal mission to support small business owners and entrepreneurs no matter where they are at on their journey. Because small businesses are the heartbeat of a city, and they really are what make it special. 6th Avenue Storytelling has helped brands across the country grow their business using these exact steps. Head to 6avstorytelling.com and download the Storytelling Pathway to get your step-by-step guide today. Stories with Soul is brought to you by Fort Worth Business Press. The Fort Worth Business Press has been instrumental for me as a business owner. They were actually the first publication to ever cover 6th Avenue Homes and also 6th Avenue Storytelling, which were huge wins for our companies. I also have been following along for years. I've been a subscriber. It has allowed me to keep up to date with everything that is happening in the business community and see what other business owners are doing and just stay involved in all sort of the economic development of what is happening in Fort Worth. If you are in any way involved in business, you should go subscribe and sign up for their publication, sign up for their twice daily newsletter, and they're actually offering a storytelling discount right now if you listen to the podcast. Become an insider using the storytelling code storytelling10, all one word, lowercase, to stay up to date with the people and companies and issues that matter most. Visit fortworthbusinesspress.com to sign up today.
So I laid out of school for a year, working in restaurants, and I went, I'm going to go.
Where were you working? Were you working in Fort Worth? Like what restaurants?
Oh, I can't even remember.
Okay.
But I want to go to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park. Mm-hmm. And again, approached my folks. Nobody goes, what is this, CIA? This is insanity. Uh-huh. You need a college degree.
Yeah.
So I went, all right. If I get a college degree, can I go to the CIA? Will y'all help me go to the CIA? Yes. Okay. So I transferred to University of North Texas and I got a degree in hotel restaurant management.
Okay.
And
Smart.
Where I was floundering at TCU because I had no interest in going to class. I was going, what am I doing here? I was on the dean's list.
Wow.
And making straight A's because
it perked your interest.
It was something that I was passionate about.
Yeah.
And then from UNT, went to the Culinary Institute of America in Hyde Park, and then worked in New York, worked in San Francisco. So I kind of paid my dues along the ways.
Nice restaurants?
Yeah, went to work for Wolfgang Puck, fine dining restaurant. And so mainly fine dining restaurants because at that point I was going, the only food is there's got to be a white tablecloth and it's got to be hoity-toity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the problem with some people now is they don't recognize if it's not fine dining that it's worth your effort. Mm-hmm. But did that, ended up back in Texas.
And why did you wind up back in Texas? I missed Texas?
No, and it was. I'd been out of state for years, mm-hmm. living in San Francisco, hard to afford a house, much less an apartment or condo. Mm-hmm. I always grew up with dogs. You couldn't have a dog. Uh-huh. You couldn't have your truck parked at the curb. Uh-huh. So I was going, enough. I'm ready to go back to Texas. And we went back to Austin because I was going, Austin, my sister had just moved back, and I was going, I want to be in Austin. So moved back to Austin.
With the goal of starting something or working in another restaurant?
With the goal of just learning what the market was, working. But about 2 years after being in Austin, that's when I went, I'm going to do my own place.
Okay, so how old were you at that time? And then, like, how many years did you, like, grind it out? Like, do you pay your dues?
I ground it out until 30, around 30.
Yeah.
But in my mind, like in any art or any vocation, you've got to pay your dues.
That's right.
I had worked for a chef early on. He said, you know nothing, and you're going to do yourself a lot of favors if you go out and you just keep your head down, bust your ass, work as many hours as you can, and learn. Yeah. Learn from the dishwasher, learn from the chef, learn from everybody around, and just absorb everything you can. Spend a year at every restaurant. After a year, you should have absorbed everything there. Move on. Stretch yourself. Go to wherever you want to live in the United States. It's not forever. And pick out restaurants that you admire what they're doing. Even if you have to wash dishes, get in that restaurant and learn.
Wow. And you felt like that's exactly right.
Yeah. And I think that, and I hate to sound like the old man, but because of food TV, because of all the food magazines, kids go to culinary school, they get out and they think that they're the next whoever, Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah.
And they're not willing to pay their dues.
Years. I mean, that's like a doctor. That's like,
well,
it's like you kind of got a doctor.
But you know what?
In food.
I loved every minute of it. And other than working too many hours and being poor, I'd go back to it because I just love the grind. I love the vibe and fast-paced of a restaurant.
See, I feel like that's something that every single entrepreneur, has said is they started out, they found their passion, and they said, okay, I'm going to start doing this, whatever industry it is. But there's always this period. And I think that as a young 20-something, you don't know that there's this period. But there's a period of usually 4, 5, 10 years of grinding it. Yep. And that's what every single person has said. And it's funny now hearing, we listed off all the success of the podcast, and you're like, oh man, that's a lot. But in your mind, like whenever you're repeating it right here, you're like, and then I graduated, and then I went to New York and San Francisco and in Austin for 2 years, and then I started my own thing. I'm like, that we just covered like 5, 6, 8, 10 years right there, like in a sentence, But that is kind of like what it takes a lot of times to get there.
That's what makes you or gives you the ability, not just confidence, but knowledge to be successful in business or life. Yeah. You've got to pay your dues. In San Francisco, I was working 2 jobs, but both jobs, yes, I needed them to pay the bills, but I learned something at every job.
So was your family supportive then? Like were they at this point they were like, he's chasing his passion.
Yeah. I mean, once I got a college degree and they were going, all right, you've proved yourself. Then went to CIA, and then they saw what I was doing and very supportive. I mean, I'm fortunate to come from a family that their motto was, we don't care what you kids do, but you will apply yourself, you will be part of your community, and you're going to find something that gives you joy and that you can give back.
And you still kind of, those are tenets, or that's still a part of what you're doing?
Still part of what I do, and people that come up through the organization, I preach that, is you've got to give back, you've got to be part of your community, and you've got to have a passion, and you've got to show up every day. That's the hard thing is you have got to show up with your standards attached every day.
That's so. What you just said, I told you I was doing some research last night, but I found I think it was in Texas Monthly, something, but it was a quote where you said you will be productive, you'll be part of your community, do that, and we'll support you. Whatever path you take is up to you, but you're going to do something. Which essentially that like you're going to work hard, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's finding. But before you can work hard, you have to find your passion in life.
Yeah,
and be a doctor, be whatever you want to be. But be involved, be vibrant, live.
So at what point did it go? I mean, were you dreaming this whole time of I want to start my own things or my own thing? Like,
you know, in the back of your mind, you want to have your own restaurant. I am fortunate that I had exposure to a lot of different cuisines, interest in a lot of different concepts, from fast food to fine dining to everything in between. So it's, and I hate to say it, I'm not a one-trick pony, meaning I can only do Mexican food, or I can, because I find the whole,
you like it all.
I like the whole vibe of food and beverage or hospitality. It all fascinates me and interests me.
And the creative part.
Yeah.
Your mom was an artist, right? I think
my mother was she was an artist, a art patron. She wasn't great, but she was just fascinated by art and design and all of that.
So do you think some of your creativity came from that?
I think part of it is I think you're to have a good eye to be able to sing, to be able to create food. It's like, I wish I could be a musician. I do not have that ability to do that, no matter how hard I would try. And I did guitar lessons. Terrible. You don't want me singing on your next album, Jamie. But I think an eye for design is a gift. And you can train yourself to understand how things are laid out. But I think I was just blessed through my mother. And then on my father's side, he always had a shop building stuff, and he was at arm's length in construction, development, real estate. So I think I got both of those, the ability to build and the interest in building things from my father, a sense of place and style from my mother, that artistic, and combined. I think that's why I love doing restaurants and concepting, is it's not just the food, but it's everything from the tables, the chairs, the experience.
Yeah.
I call it unity of concept.
That's a
meaning that, yes, you walk in and the place looks cool as far as the design of the building, the furniture matches, the uniforms, the music. There's a unity of what you're trying to convey to your guests. And it's easier said than done. And it's not always done on the first try. We'll do a restaurant concept and go back in and say, you know, we missed it on this level. And then Can you give an example of that,
of one where you're like, I felt like we missed it?
Well, we did Lou's Bodega on the east side in Austin. I did not want it to be called Lou's. Our partner Larry McGuire said, we're going to call it Lou's. I was going, oh no. But it was going to be a total rotisserie restaurant. We were doing porchetta, rotisserie beef, chicken, and the foods that went with that. And we missed the mark on the food end and a little bit of the design end. It was a patio, or has a patio in the back. And it just didn't click. And customers were come, they loved the food, but we just didn't get the repeats. And about 9 months in, I sat with Larry and my sister, who are partners on the deal, and said, it's not working the way we expected it to work. And what can we do to change it? So we changed the menu mix. We're still doing rotisserie. We added a burger because we looked at our competition in that neighborhood and said, you know, we could kill it on this. We made some adjustments with fence heights and plantings on the patio. And about 3 months later, it blew up.
So it takes some humility to do that.
It takes humility, but I always also have the motto, if there's no change, there's no change. By just doing the same thing.
If there's no change, there's no change.
If you just sit there thinking, well, and I hear this from a lot of restaurateurs, my customers are so stupid. If they had better taste, if they understood this, they'd get what I'm doing and they'd give me their money. And you're going, no, you're the guy who has no clue.
Yeah.
Because you're not giving your customers what they're wanting, or they'd be in there giving you their money. So if there's no change, there's no change. You've got to sit back and reevaluate every day. And one thing we do in the restaurants, and I'm adamant about this, and I warn managers coming in, listen, we talk about it every day, the good, the bad, the whatever. We're going to talk every day about what did we do right? What could we have done better? And they went, yeah, I can live by that. And about 6 months in, they're going, damn, I'm tired of getting my ass kicked. And I'm going, I'm not kicking your ass. We're just talking about what could we do better.
Yeah, because if you want to grow, what does that look on a practical level? Like, how do you do that? Is it like at the end of the shift, we have a specific meeting, or how do you like practically do that?
It's more informal.
Okay.
Of every day, your key managers get together, either over a coffee or a beer, and say, all right, what did we, and you don't go through everything, but you go, what did we do well? Jimmy on the grill killed it tonight. What could we have done better? You know, the mashed potatoes were just a little bit loose. For example, we did the Fort Worth Food and Wine Festival Saturday event, outdoor event, and we did little slider hamburgers because we're reintroducing the hamburger at Roy Pope. And after the event, pulled all the guys together and said, the food was coming out great, flavor, blah, 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 but the slice of the tomato they were inconsistent. And instead of one little piece of cheese, we should have done two.
Okay. This gives me a glimpse into the mind of Lou. But the slice of the tomato was inconsistent.
Yeah, but if you don't talk about it, you're accepting mediocrity.
Yeah. I think there's also an element of dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
You know, I was thinking this morning about just kind of having an owner's mentality. We talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think part of having an owner's mentality is just having this dissatisfaction. You still want to be grateful. Like, this is, I'm excited. We did good work. I want to praise good work. But also, like, pushing, it can always be better. And I want to push to.
And there's a fine line between a critical eye and standards and a room for variance to coming across as the guy that all he does is complain.
Yeah.
So
that's a hard pendulum. Yeah.
It's a hard balance of what is, because some days I'll go in and I'll go, oh, do I say something? And I'm going, I've got to.
Yeah.
But it's, the key there is agreeing on what your standards are. So everybody understands what your standards are. So if they don't achieve it, you can say, hey, you know, the chicken is a little bit too, and this happened 2 days ago. The chicken is cooked a little bit too long. It's a little dark. And to our standard is it should be between this color and this color. So you've got to give a standard, and then you've got to hold your people to that standard.
But you're also pushing that standard too. It sounds like you're also like, man,
but the thing is, you've got to get a buy-in from your people of what your standard is.
Yeah.
So then, if you don't achieve your standard, then you can talk about it. But if it's just you come in going, oh, I wish that was better. Well, define better. I wish that was more well done. Well, what temperature are you talking about? So you've got to be very specific of what your standards are, and they've got to be measurable and achievable.
Yeah. That's good. Measurable and achievable. Okay, I want to go back to taking the leap, so to speak, from I'm working in all of these kitchens, I'm learning to
well, let's get back to the story. You left off. You're in Austin. You've been there for a year or so, maybe 2.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, this is time to kind of.
And what segued into that was, my sister was working at the Attorney General's office. She had been in New York as an assistant district attorney. At the same time, I was at CIA. So I would come in from Hyde Park and spend every weekend with her in Brooklyn Heights. And then I went back to California, was working for Puck. She made the move from New York, got burnt out of New York in the ADA's office, and became assistant attorney for the Attorney General's office, a prosecutor. I moved back to Austin shortly after she did because I was ready to get back to Texas. And we were both living on off of South Congress,
which at the time was not.
No, South Congress was crackheads and whores, and the Continental Club was basically it. But
how did you wind up on South Congress then, if it was that? Like,
because Travis Heights neighborhood, Bolden Creek back behind Magnolia Cafe, there were some cool neighborhoods back there.
Some old houses.
Yeah, but South Congress was not the strip it is now.
Yeah,
and you were working as a line chef or something.
I was working for the big high end caterer as the exec chef.
Oh, okay.
Doing the Governor's Mansion and Michael Dell, and so that was another aspect of cooking, that catering part of it, that I really wanted to learn. So I was exec chef at Word of Mouth Catering. She was working for Attorney General's office, and people in the neighborhood were always complaining there's no good coffee in Austin or South Congress. And about that time, she bought the San Jose, which is a funny story because I was driving by there going, that would make a good restaurant.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I went by her house and she said, you're not going to believe this. I just put an offer on the San Jose. And I went, damn. But anyway, so.
That's funny.
So people were complaining there's no good coffee. And then they came to me and said, you're a food guy, do a coffee shop. So I went to Liz. She had just bought the San Jose. And I said, let's do a coffee shop. There was an old tire store on that corner there by the San Jose while you're waiting to renovate it.
Wait, what year was this?
It was before coffee shops were cool.
91, I think.
Wow, so this is way before coffee shops are cool.
No, it wasn't 91. It was 98, I think.
Yeah, so but there was
but
not.
South Congress was nothing.
Yeah, but
then.
even coffee shops. I mean, that was not a.
But we had both experienced it living in San Francisco, New York.
You brought some of that.
So there was an old tire store, rinkety tire store on the corner, and we said, easy lift, we'll do a coffee shop. And we got into zoning and planning it out, and they said, you can't use that old tire shop. So we decided we'll build something, and that was the original Joe's Coffee, named after my mother, Joanne.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And there's actually a restaurant right next at the Austin Motel now named Joanne's, and it's got the big red lips because my mother always had the heavy red lipstick.
So your first concept was the coffee shop. I didn't
was
realize
Joe's.
That. I didn't know that.
So with that, we had to do baked goods. So we did a little commissary kitchen down the street, and I went, now is the time to do a restaurant. So through that commissary kitchen, we converted the front, and we did the original Lambert's on South Congress, which was...
I didn't know the original Lambert's was on South Congress.
Yep.
Interesting.
So,
which was like barbecue?
No, it was kind of American small bistro type food.
Okay.
And great accolades, and from there, it just kind of went from there doing other restaurants.
So did you quit everything? Like, did you quit? You quit your job?
Yep. And opened a restaurant.
And she, I guess, quit her job too.
She quit her job, and
were your parents freaking out? Where they're like, both our kids are
kind of
on this on this shady street.
What are they doing?
Yeah.
But when we opened Joe's, and I can't remember.
I'm sure they were flattered that you named it.
Yeah. But there was Kelso was his name. He was kind of like our Bud Kennedy.
Okay.
And he did an article in the Austin American Statesman that basically said, who the hell is going to sit on South Congress and drink coffee? A latte on South Congress.
Do you still have that article?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I hope that's like framed somewhere. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So they went well. I'm assuming they went well.
Well, the first 6 months of Joe's, we were going, what the hell have I done? Because it was going into to winter. It was cold as hell. Nobody was sitting on South Congress. Kelso was right. And it took about 9 months or so before it just started catching on, and it became that neighborhood hang.
Wow.
But in an early lesson is, it's never easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got to want it. You've got to show up every day.
And when you say never, like, it's never easy. Like, is it ever easy?
No, it's never easy.
Yeah. Have you ever started any restaurant that's easy?
No, they all take longer. You have less sleep, cost more money, more challenges, but it's part of it.
Yeah.
It's just part of creating something. And I tell all folks that have not opened a restaurant, for the 6 months you walk in every day and pull your hair out going, when are they going to get it? When is this going to smooth down? And after about 6 months, you walk in one day and go, everybody showed up. There's the place isn't burning down. Everything's working. And that is all due to the results of having your standards and holding your people accountable.
Did you know how to do that then?
No. You learn.
So those two, restaurant, coffee shop, kind of the first two ventures.
Yep.
And during that time, there's always we always hear commonalities between stories. When did you ever have a moment where you're like, we're going to quit, like we're going to shut these things down?
I never had. We never said we're going to shut them down.
Okay.
We always went in and said, what can we do better?
Okay.
But I had borrowed money.
Going back to that previous thing you were saying.
But we had borrowed money from the family, and we're going, we got to make this work.
There's no change. There's no change.
No, there's no. And so it's not like, well, lock the door, walk away from it. It's got to work.
Was there a moment where it did start to work where you're like, oh my gosh?
Oh yeah.
What was that? Do you remember that?
When we're a firm believer, and it took me a while, but a firm believer in the numbers don't lie.
So you started making profit, I guess.
Started making profit.
And you're like, oh. Where were you always a numbers person? Like, were you always like...
No, because it's not intuitive, and it's something that you've got to learn. But early on, I was convinced that don't be afraid of the numbers, embrace the numbers, because if you can understand your numbers and how they work, your life is going to be so much easier, because you're not living paycheck to paycheck, and you can control the outcome of your numbers by, like, food costs. Do you have waste? Are you charging enough? Are you overpaying? Or are things selling? Labor costs. You've got to study labor and go, well, either I'm not charging enough, or I'm not controlling labor, or I've got too many. So by embracing that, that empowers you to do the thing you love. Because if it wasn't for having to make a living, I would be at the wood shop every day screwing around. And not worry about the numbers.
So what happened next? So what was the... Those two started working.
Those two...
You got them, like... People are coming to South Congress. Restaurants are making a little bit of money.
I did a couple of things with my sister through the hotel end. She would pull me in. I would pull her in on some design stuff, and since then we've done stuff together. But I did a side gig, Crestline Hotels and Resorts, because I was doing a little stuff with my sister, approached me to work for them for a short while. So I went to work for Crestline Hotels, based out of McLean, Virginia. They were doing some Texas projects. So did the food and beverage for them.
All while Lambert's is still going?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then Larry McGuire, who started working for us when he was 16, I had put him in one of the Crestline hotels. He had been a line cook for us at Lambert's. And he came in one day and said, I have got this opportunity of this old historic building downtown. Let's put a team together and do that. So we did Lambert's Downtown Barbecue.
And that was a different concept?
Yep.
Okay.
Totally different concept. And then from there, it's just doing other hotels and other restaurants.
I know you said you've done a lot of different types of concepts, a lot of different types of foods, and you're not a one-trick pony. But when I think of like your like signature move, so to speak, I generally think of that like meat on a fire, like and a little cowboy.
And I think that's from my background is even when I was working for Wolfgang Puck, and one of the first jobs I had there was hot prep. Hot prep guy does all the stocks, the sauces, and a lot of the things that end up going to the line that they create, the line cooks create the dishes for. But the other thing that the hot prep guy had to do was cook lunch for all the staff. And most people hated it because they had so many things going on. They had to stop and feed 40 people, 50 people every day. And people would walk by to see who was working hot prep and go, oh, lunch is going to be terrible today. It's Jimmy or it's whoever, because they just throw crap up there.
All right, guys, we're interrupting your podcast experience once again.
I know. I'm sorry.
But we are giving you something for free.
So it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
We recently released a document called The Storytelling Pathway on our website. It is our playbook for success, for growing brands, for marketing. That's literally everything that we do at 6th Avenue Storytelling, and we want to share it with the world. We want to give it to you.
So in addition to these nuggets that you're learning on this podcast, you can get our free playbook, free manual for how you grow your business from
6th Avenue Storytelling. Yeah, it's the storytelling, and it's really, really good.
Where do you find it?
It's 6avenuestorytelling.com.
There you go.
And it's good. Go get it. Go download it. I promise it's going to help your business.
I embraced it because it gave me opportunity to show everybody there what my cooking was about. So, and they always made fun of me, not made fun, but pointed out very much that I'm from Texas, the ranch guy. So I embraced that and would do everything from barbecue chicken out of the Japanese duck oven to pinto beans to meatloaf to the foods I grew up eating.
Yeah.
And I got to where they're going, we love your food. Yeah. And it stoked me, but at the same time, that's part of the reason I do what I do is you're feeding people and satisfying them. It's like you singing. You get that immediate reaction of people looking at it, and you see it in their eyes.
You can feel it when it's working.
That they're digging it.
Yeah.
And I got off on being able to do my food and feed people.
But that's would you say that's kind of your vibe, like the Texas flair to it?
And it's not conscious. It's just I go back to the foods I love that I grew up eating, that I put my spin on, and so So it wasn't a conscious effort to be.
It just came out.
Yeah.
But so you put in the third concept, which is like kind of a barbecue.
Yep.
And was that going well? Was that good? Was it bad?
Again, learning curves there took a while.
Okay.
We did a music venue upstairs.
Oh, really?
And still going. But there again, every one of these, unless you're duplicating something to the T, even then it's not always easy. But these one-off concepts are always challenging.
So you had a music component, and that you have a bunch of musician friends. Like
I have a lot of musician friends.
Is that why? Because you started having.
No, I just think it's the circle I run in and my sister runs in attracts ne'er-do-well musicians like you, Jamie. You guys are part of the pirate gang.
The pirate gang. Well, let's talk about that, because I think that also. You and your sister have had this, I don't know if like a magic 8 ball. You've like predicted these spaces that have blown up. I don't even know if you've predicted them. I think you've kind of caused them. You've put in these really creative, beautiful spaces like South Main, for example, or even White Settlement or South Congress and even downtown. Like, where did that come? Was it just luck? Was it like we have a vision for what it should be, or like?
I think it's the ability to see something and see value in it and see longevity in it, and something that you're going, why didn't somebody else think of this? Or that could be so dang cool. And then no fear of putting your ass out there and trying it. That's one thing people don't understand, and I think with all artists is every time you're doing something, you're very exposed.
Yeah, they're vulnerable.
And people go, well, they're a little stuck up or they're this or that. I think it's shyness and just that vulnerability of
taking a risk,
but even more than just a financial risk, you're putting your name out there and putting your face on something and then standing there as people sit there and eat it and have the ability to judge you going, that was good, that was bad, you got to have thick skin. You've got to have a thick skin, and you've got to have a little bit of, I hate to say ego, to put your ass out there every day and go, come on.
Yeah. I feel like whenever we did the 411, we didn't do any commercial development before that, really.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing.
Dabbled in it. We didn't know what we were doing though. Yeah. And you kind of laid out the platform anyway. So we got a head start even compared to most commercial developers. And so we were like, but at the time, South Main didn't have any retail. It didn't have a restaurant. It didn't have anything. And so we were like, we're going to be kind of the first people out there. And so we're going to make this building cool. We think it's cool. Yeah. Lou's already made it he's made it pretty awesome.
Made it look cool.
We're going to make it like trying to elevate a little bit, bring people in and turn it from a man cave into a space where people are going to like retail, are going to come. So let's see. And we're just going to hope. Yeah, like, we're gonna hope that other people think this is cool too. So,
but there's a hope and also like some swagger and going,
of like,
I think we can.
You've got to have the self-confidence.
Yeah. So my question is it worked? And at first, it's always like 6 months, even a year. It was like, man, I still like. We're like, is it going to ever get to where we think it's going to get to? So my question is you've obviously experienced that. Multiple times. I mean, 10 plus times, 20 plus times. Has there ever been a time where you're like, man, this is going to be really cool, and it just falls flat, and then it doesn't work out? Or is it, have you just said, well, it didn't work out like we had to, so we're going to tweak, we're going to change because there's no change, we're going to...
One example is, and I think adversity and struggle and failure, I think you learn from that. You shouldn't be afraid of failure. One example of that is the Lamberts in Fort Worth. I was brought in, same team that did Dutch's and investors there, and I was not supposed to be the operator in that location, and that was more on my end. And I don't think I was living in Fort Worth full time at that point. I wasn't going to be the operator there. The operator we were going to put in there, we had a meltdown with. So kind of last man standing, do something there. I got into it more on the real estate end of it. I like the building, but there were some challenges there. Location, parking, it would have not been my first choice. And after several years of operating there, and I tell people this all the time, it takes just as much capital dollars and your time sink and investment to open something in a stellar location that is busy 7 days a week. It takes just as much capital to open somewhere that's not a great location. And we were just challenged with the location, parking, a lot of things there. And I forget how long we were open, I brought in the partners and I said, I need to invest resources in other things. It's time. And it was not working.
Yeah.
And an old restaurant buddy of my father told me once, when you dread driving up for whatever reason, and you're not getting joy and satisfaction out of them, shut it down.
Yeah. That's a hard thing to do. I mean,
it's hard. Yeah. It is the hardest thing I've ever done.
Your name is on it, too, so it's a little embarrassing. You're like, man, this is...
And I was never embarrassed. It was just frustrated. But at some point, you just you've got to be a realist.
You said that was the hardest thing, one of the hardest things you've ever done. that is a unique statement. Like, I mean, so expound on that a little bit. Like, I mean, did it, that time period, was it like you knew you needed to and kind of waited a little bit? Was it just,
exactly?
Okay.
It was just, and we tried different things there. And at the end of the day, you've got to be a realist and go, is it location? Is it why are we not getting traction here? Mm-hmm. And at some point you've got to say, you know, time has so much value. My time is the most valuable commodity I have, and my good people that are working there. And so
you have other stuff that's working really well at the same time.
Yeah. So you're not going to hit 100% all the time.
Although I would argue that with the location and the concept, if that was here today, like 2021, would be crushing it.
Yeah.
I feel like you were an early adopter in the concept. That concept was a little forward for Fort Worth at the time, and then location, like that was before West 7th. That was before,
you've got
this whole development was happening.
And we didn't read our demographic.
The foundry wasn't there. Now that's all and now this is like popping.
Yeah.
And
that's the other big thing is we do. I'm a believer in the facts and what your demographics are. You've got to understand your demographics. Mm-hmm. You've got to understand your competition. You can't just, and a lot of people do it. They just open up regardless. They're going, oh, I can make a great whatever.
Blind optimism.
Yeah, blind optimism. Yeah. At some point, with a lot of dollars at stake, you've got to do your due diligence, look at your demographic, look at your competition. We do it every day.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's good.
And so fast forward to, so how did you wind up back in Fort Worth? You had all this stuff happening in Austin.
I still do have a lot of stuff happening in Austin.
And in West, like in Marfa.
Yeah.
Marfa is a great example of like nothing, nothing was there. And you're like,
Well, Donald Judd can be thanked for sparking Marfa. But did the Dutchess concept still living in Austin. We were doing Lambert's. And I was back and forth. Mm-hmm. And I was going, I've always loved Fort Worth.
Okay.
Austin was getting busier and busier.
There's a family history.
There's family history from just being a ranching family in West Texas, Fort Worth through TCU, the large city closest to Odessa was where everyone came. Mm-hmm. This is where they came shopping. This is where, and then I had cousins after school that stayed here. Mm-hmm. So I had family here. I had deep connections. I always loved Fort Worth, but I was back and forth between here and Austin. And at some point, got a small house here. And me and my partner were going, love Fort Worth. Let's reverse this and make Fort Worth our permanent residence, and then do the side trips to Austin, which I currently do. Mm-hmm. And I love both cities, but Fort Worth is home.
When did y'all move here?
Oh, I am terrible on time. 9 years ago, I think.
But I honestly...
10 years ago.
If I'm being honest, going back to the 411 story, going in there and kind of figuring out, learning who you were and all the things, I was kind of shocked that you lived in Fort Worth. Yeah. Because we're just always a little bit behind. I feel like Fort Worth is doing some pretty rad stuff now, but we're always... behind San Francisco, behind New York, behind all the, and I was kind of shocked. I was like, man, that he's living here? Like,
but the thing is, my twin brother went to UT. Mm-hmm. So I spent 80s, 90s around Austin. Austin, back in the 80s, 90s, the things that pulled me to Austin, the vibe, the livability. Mm-hmm. Fort Worth has got that. When we moved here full time, I was going, this is like a livable Austin.
Yeah, it's very livable. It's a neat town.
Music, good food, great neighborhoods, great schools. All the things that, for me, give me quality of life is I find in Fort Worth. Mm. And I still love Austin, but the pace, the cost of living, the hipsterism, it's just. I'm trying to say that politely, but it's just, and I still love Austin.
Yeah,
adore Austin, but at my age, where I am in my career, I dig Fort Worth.
Yeah, I love that. I love that I'm really glad that you're here. I feel like, because I feel like you've helped bring a unique perspective, and just do some.
Well, and I know a lot of Austin folks that are moving here. We were talking to our buddy Robert Ellis, musician, consciously, voluntarily said, I want to be in Fort Worth.
Because it's such a it's a slower pace of life. It's friendly. It's more.
But it's creative, and Fort Worth embraces creativity.
Yeah. And so you felt that when you got here. You're like, man, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. And then staying on the Fort Worth sort of bandwagon, you are, I don't know if this is the riskiest thing you've ever done, or just like you've started all these neat things.
Yep.
And I would say the past year and a half, maybe it's been 2 years, I don't know how, you are now tackling Fort Worth institutions.
That was not a conscious decision.
Okay.
I was trying not to do projects in Fort Worth, so when I was here, I wasn't working.
So people would leave you alone.
Yeah, exactly. But
you're an entrepreneur, and you
I'm
can't
an
help
entrepreneur,
yourself.
and I had always been intrigued by especially grocery stores, Dean and DeLuca in New York, and just little neighborhood. And living in New York, living in San Francisco, I loved little neighborhood grocery stores because that's how you shop there. Instead of going to a big box H-E-B or something, you would buy what you needed for the day.
At the bodega.
Bodega. You would meet for coffee at the bodega. And someone whispered in my ear, hey, we hear Roy Pope is up, or they're thinking of selling. And for the people that don't know Roy Pope, I think it started in the 40s, 46, but was specialty grocery store for the West Side. They're known for just their customer service. People would have house accounts there. So generations of people in Fort Worth grew up going to Roy Pope. And they would do fried chicken, and they were the first place that did Bluebell ice cream. First grocery store. They would do home delivery. But it just had that special vibe in Fort Worth. It was a little long in the tooth, loved the old owners, but it hadn't been renovated or brought up. And he would even admit to kind of our day of standards and kind of expectations. So I was going, that would be such a cool project, but I don't want to tackle that. Well, I got a call from an old fraternity brother who's in real estate, and Roger Shefflow, and then Mark Harris, who's a real estate guy.
I have a couple of Roger's hats.
Oh, Roger is like one of those guys that he infuriates you, but I love the guy because I've known him since college. So they approached me, and they came and they said, we want you to do this project with me. And I went, oh, what is it? And they said, Roy Pope. And I went, oh.
But you had thought about Roy.
I had thought about it before, and I said, if I can bring in an operating team and kind of structure it, and they said, hey, we're real estate guys. You take operations, we'll take real estate, we'll do the renovation. And I went, if I have partners on this deal, I'll do it. And I brought in a guy named Chris Reel, who's worked for us since he was 16. He was in high school. And he's graduated from TCU and has done so much with us, restaurant catering wise. And I said, let me check with Chris. And I brought Chris in. I said, Chris, will you do this? He said, yeah, let's do it. So we went in. Of course, during COVID, did a complete gut renovation and put Roy Pope in. So it's a huge learning curve, still a learning curve because of being short-staffed, which we've taken care of now. Great team in there. And then now everything's short supply.
Oh, it's hard to get product.
It's hard to get product.
But it's beautiful. It's people. Like you have made. It's like a grocery store. Did you call it a grocery store?
Yeah.
But people talk about it. I think that's
good.
Like, I have a bunch of friends that love it. There's a bunch of people on our employees, our staff that like love it. They're like, go get coffee there all the time. Like,
then we did our job.
Yeah, it's neat. And you're also so you didn't just stop there. You're like, okay, we're doing this, and now it's also Paris Coffee Shop. How the heck did that come about?
Paris was kind of the same.
You're like, I'm just on a roll. I'm going to keep.
No, Roger Shefflow, who is Roger, came in one day at one of our partners' meeting and said, "Are y'all ready for another one?" And I said, "What?"
We've only been doing this for 2 months.
Yeah, he said, "Well, a year for renovation." Yeah. He said, "Paris Coffee Shop." And again, has near and dear to my heart. My father went to TCU, and he played ball at TCU and lives in West Texas, but has a home in Fort Worth. But since graduating from TCU, other than when he was in the Air Force, he has been to every home TCU football game.
Wow.
For all these years. So he would come in, and his running group from TCU days would every Saturday sit at the same table.
Oh, that's cool.
And I would go into Paris. So to me, it was one of those iconic restaurants. And Paris was started in the 1920s, I believe.
Wow.
And supposedly there's dispute between it and another restaurant, which is the longest continuing restaurant in Fort Worth. But Paris claims to be.
I mean, it's an institution.
It's an institution. Yeah. But again, like Pope, everybody has an opinion, it's near and dear to their heart. They're going, don't change anything. I love it. Well, how many times do you go in there? Well, not that often. It's filthy and the food isn't good.
But hadn't changed in 50 years. Yeah.
But so we are in the process now of gutting it and doing a complete remodel. But we are embracing Paris Coffee Shop as what it is. We bought the intellectual property, everything about it. So we're going back in as Paris Coffee Shop Diner. The layout is going to be very much the same. But instead of just breakfast, lunch, 6 days a week, we're going to do breakfast, lunch, dinner 7 days a week. We're going to add a beer, wine, liquor component to it. So it's not going to be a bar, but you can get a glass of wine, a beer.
Yeah, it'll have
with
dinner. Which it never has had that.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that.
By the way, one of your first customers is going to be my 8-year-old son, who is carrying on the Fort Worth tradition. I told him about the history of Paris Coffee Shop, and so that's, for whatever reason, at 3 or 4 years old, that became his favorite restaurant.
I love it.
So whenever I told him, hey, it's actually coming back, it was shut down. He was real sad. So he's going to be one of your first customers.
Tell him to bring all his buddies and his daddy with a fat wallet.
Check. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Are you can do any more of these? I mean, this is like, you seem like you're on a roll right now.
No, Joe T's. The next purchase is Joe T's.
I love the land carts. No, this is enough.
Okay,
enough to say grace over.
Yeah,
I'm trying to slow down a little bit.
You are. You don't seem like you're trying to slow down.
Well, my sister and I, she did the hotel in Todos Santos, north of Cabo,
which is beautiful. We've both been there.
Yeah. Oh, have y'all been there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dude,
loved it.
I did the food and beverage for there, but I was there before that thing had even broken ground. So I worked with my sister. What is the hotel? What is the food and beverage? Work with our architects.
You drive down like this dirt road for forever,
fantastic.
and then it's like, where did this come from?
But I've always loved Mexico, but fell in love with Todos Santos.
Yeah.
And about 3 years ago, my sister and I bought 2 houses next door to each other on the beach out of Pescadero.
Okay.
So the last 3 years, and this is the good and the bad of being blessed with good taste and wanting to do stuff, is you have a sister who really loves that and has very expensive taste.
And she goes big.
Yeah.
She's like, she's not like, we're just going to put a house in.
We got these 2 houses and we're putting them together.
Okay.
And it's been we're almost done with it, but we can sleep. I think there's 4 buildings on the property, pool, beachside.
And how close is it to the hotel?
is the crows flies maybe half a mile, but you've got to go out to the main road and then back down the dirt roads.
Yeah.
But we can sleep like 30 people there.
Oh, that's fun.
So you've basically created a mini hotel.
Yeah,
next
exactly,
to your hotel.
exactly.
The waves crashed, and the food program was great. We had like a fantastic drinks, and we ate. We spent like 6 hours there. We like passed out on the.
Yeah, but going into winter, the whales will start migrating up there,
cool.
and we're right by San Pedrito, which is a killer surf beach. I'm a West Texas guy. I don't surf. I get out there and paddle around. But you wake up in the morning on the porch with your coffee, and the sun's coming up, and there's 20 guys out there surfing.
Yeah,
it's magical.
That's really neat. And, but like that, and then even in like those are two examples of finding a place where like. I didn't know about it, until. How did y'all find? Like, how'd you find that spot?
That Todos Santos was a lot of Americans have been going down there for years, since 50s, 60s, but they didn't have the highway system there, so it was a trek and hard to get there from Cabo. The Mexican government came in, and I forget what year it was, but purposely connected some of these really cool spots with the highways, an upgraded highway system. So someone approached my sister on a hotel, and I get pitched restaurants all the time. She's pitched hotels all the time. Said, come down here, and she was doing a favor. Yeah, I'll go down there. And it reminds me, and it reminded her a lot of Marfa, in that you've got to want to get there to be there. And it's kind of isolated, that high desert, and fell in love with it and agreed to do the hotel there.
It's kind of like it's almost like playing a vinyl record where it's a lot of work. You gotta pull this thing out and clean it off, but it's part of like the chat. Like you got to want to be there. But part of like the charm is you got to drive and go, and it's a little harder work, but it makes it
even more special. And the same thing with Marfa. We ranch out there in that area, and so I've spent my life around Marfa, Fort Davis, Alpine, and when I was growing up, Marfa was a four-way stop sign, and that was it. You drove through. Donald Judd came out there, and I forget what years that was, 80s, and created this kind of hip art compound. And once he died, they did Shinati Foundation, and people started coming out there, kind of doing pilgrimages, and then it just became the Dallas people, Houston people with money kind of said this is cool, and that put their blessing on it, and it became kind of a journey for everybody to go out there. And it's just kind of grown on itself. The hipness of it.
But I think part of with all of these spaces, with Austin, with South Main, with kind of going back to what you said earlier, you have kind of these ragtag musician friend, the Pirates. But I think part of but those are the people too that shape culture. And you guys have been kind of influential in bringing a community. Because there's a community. It's a community.
It is. It totally is.
And those are who get people excited about. You'll do these events, and
I think that's part of. And it's not with the end goal of we're going to invite cool people so other cool people will come. It's just. We buy in and believe in these projects because we find it interesting, intriguing, cool, and then we call our buddies, like we used to do deals at the warehouse, at the Main Street, and I'd call my musician friends. We're doing a fundraiser. Come play. Do you know Dan Dyer?
I'm familiar. I don't know him well, but I know his music.
It's sweet, but people like Dan and our other buddies that are musicians, and they come in and they go, "This is cool." And you feed on each other, and I think people coming to the events feed on that just kind of experience. This is fun, and this is it. And I think you just you create momentum. Cool brings cool. I don't know.
But I will say this. Because you get somebody that's very blue collar, I would say not really fancy taste in myself. I'm pointing to myself here. You get Jamey, who's he knows trends, he knows what's cool. And so you can create a space, though, that I think, somebody like me, whenever it's like some new cool hip restaurant, I don't necessarily want to go to it. I'm like, oh, I mean, I still feel comfortable in my burger and chicken fried steak and mashed potatoes. But there's something that's inviting about every place that you create, even the restaurants that you're creating, because it's not just so trendy where it's not approachable.
Cool feels temporary.
Yeah.
And I feel like part of you have created very authentic, special places.
And approachable, I would say.
Approachable, but it's not like it's cool. People are all like, this is cool, but it's not like cheap cool.
But it's it's real.
Yeah, it's authentic.
It's not a plastic trinket.
Yeah, it's not plastic.
It's real, and it has soul.
Yeah.
My sister at the which hotel is it? The Magdalena. Wrote or has Evan Voiles, who does Neon Jungle, all the neon artwork on South Congress. It's above the pool. It says Soul, SOUL, but the backstory on that is he was in Louisiana and there was some casino going out of business and it had a neon sign that said Louisiana. So he bought LOUS, thinking that someday he was going to sell it to me, that I'd create a restaurant called Lou's, which I did.
Oh, he bought and it's
instead of Louisiana, but LOUS. And my sister was doing the hotel, and she needed a neon, and she went. And she was going through his boneyard and said, I want that. I want it soul. And he went, but I got that for your brother. I don't care.
Give it to me.
So
that is funny.
But everything, and it's not a conscious effort. It's what feels good to us is a team. It's got to have soul, and it's got to have meaning, and it's got to have some truth to it.
I think that being part of a community is a big piece of that. Like you're trying to create this place for a community, for people to be invited into. And that to me is what separates the cool, trendy, that's what allows that, everyone to feel invited, everyone to feel approachable and authentic.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about soul. That's what the podcast is called.
That's right.
Stories with Soul. When we got into real estate, we're like, man, I hate a lot of real estate because it feels so like blood sucking.
It is.
When we're like, could we do real estate with soul? So when we launched 6th Avenue Homes, we said we want to do real estate with soul because something that has soul has like a heart to it. There's a purpose to it, but also makes you feel something. Yeah. When you walk in, I want to inspire people. So we talk a lot about soul, so it resonates hearing you say that like that.
But if you think of what you're doing, housing, where you live, your food, where you're staying, that's got to almost put its arm around you. You've got to be comfortable. You got to, and I've been all over the world eating at a lot of restaurants. It's got to be approachable. It's got to. I'm never going to go somewhere that they're juggling heads of lettuce and painting pictures on a plate, and they're doing it just to say, "Look at me! Look how tricky I am." Yeah. We never want to do anything that we're just going, "Look how flashy I am," because it's going to be just a flash in the pan.
Yeah. But you also have really good taste.
Well, thank you.
Which is like
sometimes. That's helpful. Sometimes.
Which is and you're like you have really good and not everybody has that. That's something I don't know that you can recreate that. I don't know. I don't think everybody has that. Like you just
crushed every entrepreneur, restaurateur's dream right there.
You got to have there's some sort of magic.
And I think part of that is get life experiences. You've got to go look, see. You aren't just born and grow up in a bubble and have good taste. You've got to expose yourself, not just with food, but design, and you've got to open your mind to.
That's not 30 years of grinding.
No, it's 30. But then you've got to take that and develop your own repertoire of who am I. It's like yourself as a person. You've got to sit back and go, who I am. What am I trying to convey here? Who am I as a person? What is my style? What is my food? What is? Do you feel
it's
not always conscious, but
can you articulate that? Do you like?
I can try.
How would you articulate that?
Which part of that ramble?
Who you are as a person and what you want. Like, can you put that into words?
That is very difficult to put into words.
You've made spaces that I feel like this is on brand for Lou. This is very Lou. But can you articulate it?
That I think my food and my sense of style is a little bit utility, meaning it's approachable, it's conceivable, meaning I'm not trying to, every step I take, style, food, housing, of being tricky. I'm trying to be very approachable, something comfortable. Kind of, I tell my guys, our job is to meet or exceed expectations. So, did that make any sense?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be tricky. I find that my food is comforting, exceeding expectations in that it may be a roasted chicken, but I'm going to take the time to source the best chicken and method. The same thing with design. We're not going to
it's not fancy.
It's not fancy.
It's like pinto beans. You can make pinto beans is like the most boring, simple food.
Yeah,
but
you're gonna
make it
even like
really
design. And early this morning was at a construction meeting for Paris Coffee Shop, and the question is, you work. We've got someone helping us on design, trying to do a bunch of this tile, and I went, that's very expected. Could we do something that's a little simpler? Like, can we do a plaster, a Venetia plaster that's, if you look at it, it's not flashy, but if you really look at it, you go, look how well done that is. Look at the patina. Look at the craftsmanship of doing that simple plaster wall. So that's the approach to living and food is, don't try to be flashy. Just do it better than anyone else.
Yeah, I like that.
I love that. Okay, so I got a question. Legacy, right? I feel like you have made your stamp in Austin and Marfa and in Mexico. We're going international. And now in Fort Worth with taking over kind of these institutional restaurants, recreating them. I mean, but keeping the legacy there, but also doing it in a new way with excellence is what I would say.
Yeah.
Kind of reusing or reframing your words. But 5-10 years from now, is this kind of like a bookend of restaurants? Is this, never say never, right? Is the Roy Pope, is the Paris Coffee Shop, is that something that's kind of like, this is a bookend to that? Is this kind of leading into more Fort Worth things? Like, what do you feel like legacy, what's the next 5-10 years look like?
I've probably the last 5 years or so, I don't typically go out and look for projects. It's, you keep your eyes open and listen to people of what's happening, what's going on. And I'm fortunate that I'm at the point in my career that I can pick and choose what projects I want to do. So it's, at this point is, if there's a project that's really speaks to me, I'll get involved with it, whether it's just solely as an investor or as somebody giving advice or as part of the operations team. But I'm also at the point that I'm trying to build a good team and already have of people that I can support in doing what I did 20 years ago.
So you're kind of raising up the next.
Yeah, because it's
Chris would be one of those.
Yeah, Chris Real is one of those guys. And it's a little bit giving back.
Yeah.
And it's also a little bit self-serving because it frees you up to do more projects. But it also gives me the chance to give back to the guys and gals that are coming up and put them in and like some of the team in Austin, partners there, they're going, stay away until they need something, then they'll call with. But it's giving them the knowledge and the wings to do whatever they want to do.
And you're intentionally thinking about that.
Oh yeah.
Well, that is legacy, right? I mean, leadership, you hear all the time, is like a true stamp of leadership, true mark of leadership is whenever you step away or you're not there, how well does a team how well does a team do? And obviously they're doing well. And by doing that, you're allowing to give back. You're then being a good leader, but you're also creating a legacy of here's the impact multiplied through multiple people, hundreds of people now. And is that kind of the intention of the next 5, 10 years?
I don't know if it's a conscious decision, but it is the intent.
Sure.
To be able to do other projects. The hardest thing I learned is to trust people and to empower people and to get a lot of feedback. It's easier if you have 1 or 3 people doing a project and you sit down, drink coffee, and make all your decisions. Mm-hmm. When you're expanding, and you've got...
I just spilled water all over you.
That's all right. That's all right.
Well, if you're listening,
I took a sip of water.
Jamie just baptized me with his water bottle.
I'm so sorry. The best way ever.
That's all right.
Oh, man,
I was getting a little warm.
That's the best podcast experience so
far. But anyway, it's more difficult, but at the same time, I think you get a lot of times better product by getting a lot of people involved, meaning getting a design team involved, getting operations, getting beverage people, and you all sit down and create together.
Yeah.
It's more difficult because I'm a control freak.
Okay.
As you want to be able to say, no, we're doing this, this, and this. But it's a learning experience, and I think it's good for the process to force yourself to listen to other ideas.
You're a self-aware control freak.
I am a self-aware control freak, yes.
There's a lot, I feel like one theme that we haven't brought up is the amount of humility that you have been speaking throughout this whole...
A whole lot of humility.
There's a layer and a foundation of humility that I think is one of the keys to success throughout this whole thing that we kind of brushed over.
Having high standards, but still like allowing people to
make mistakes and show grace. And that to me is one of my big key takeaways for me personally is like this foundation of humility, of like self-aware enough to know that you've messed up, but not where you get defeated. You stay in that guilt and shame and just like beaten down. It's like, okay, we're going to get better. We're going to move forward. Yeah. It's okay. And we're going to keep pushing. That takes humility with courage and maybe stupidity too.
But it's that especially food and beverage is you're starting from scratch every day. And there's so many things that can go wrong in the day. Your busser didn't show up. Your equipment is broken. Your guys coming in the kitchen are hungover from a party last night. So there's all these chances of things screwing up. So that's the sign of a good operator is somebody who can think and react and keep the train going. Keep it going. And
problem solve.
Yeah. But you learn that life is not perfect. And if something's going to screw up, it's going to screw up. But it's how you overcome that. How do you adjust for that to where it doesn't get to your customer? As long as that customer isn't affected or their experience isn't affected, you've kind of done your job.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, I have some random questions. I'm gonna take us in a random
I'm not surprised, Jamie. Come on.
Okay, something I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
How old are you, Lou?
63.
63.
Yeah.
And you are like jacked.
I don't know if
I wanted to ask you. I want to ask you about health. Like, I'm taking this on a totally side.
This is just for Jamie personally.
I can give you the.
You look. You look really good. I mean,
for an old man.
I mean, I'm like his muscles are popping over here in the
I
shirt.
did, growing up or coming up in food and beverage. Food and beverage is like music, is heavy partying.
Yeah, it can wear on you.
And I came up during the time that New York, San Francisco, that it wasn't just drinking. It was do a bump of cocaine and keep going all night and get up the next morning and just burn at both ends of the candle.
Yeah.
And when I did, about this time I did our first restaurant, I stopped drinking.
Okay.
Because it was a mental decision. There were some issues around it, but I was going, and my twin brother had become ill, and I was going, what a selfish person I am. I've got so much to do. I've got so many things I want to do with my life. And I'll see the guys coming in hungover in the morning. I'm just going, Lord.
I have too much on the line. Too many people are counting on
too many people are counting on you. And I was going, I have not missed anything in life, and I don't regret any of my foolish days back then. I wouldn't trade them for anything, but now's the time to be an adult, to be a grown-up man. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I started running again in high school. I ran. So I was a runner all the time, but I blew my knees out. So I started, and it was my getaway to go to the gym. Mm-hmm. And between lunch and dinner service, go to the gym and start working out. And I've had people, like I did a lot of Central Market cooking schools and cooking classes. I love that, getting in front of people and telling them my philosophy of food and how I cook. But somebody raised their hands once and said, I was heard never trust a skinny chef. And I said, well, the reality is I'm not skinny. My body weight to my height is where it should be. Yeah. But my philosophy is be careful of an obese chef. Yeah. And they go, why? And I said, number one, if anyone should know nutrition more than anyone else, it should be somebody who makes their living cooking. I should know more about nutrition than anyone. If someone should have availability of clean, good food, it should be a chef. You're in a kitchen. If someone should treat their body like an athlete, it should be a line cook or a chef, because you're on your feet 12 hours a day moving. So you've got to be physically active. And if someone is working in a tight kitchen, the last person you want in there is some guy that can't move, who takes up too much room.
So health has been a big part of your...
So, and my father played pro ball, and so it's just always, I've been around and just try to take care of myself.
Okay. What's your normal, what's a day in the life of Lou look like? Like, do you have like a morning routine or an afternoon?
I'm an early riser.
Okay. How early is early riser?
4:35.
Ooh, that's early. That's very early.
I'll see you in 4 hours.
Because it's quiet. Okay. I can have a coffee. Yeah. We have 4 dogs, dogs, and mentally, in cooking, it's called mise en place, everything in place, French term for mise en place. Yeah. There's a physical mise en place, like when you're building a house or something, you have your lumber, your nails, your hammer. So physically, everything's in place. There's also a mental mise en place of so before you start cooking a recipe, you stop a moment and you go, all right, I'm going to brown the onions, then do this and do this. I always take some time in the morning drinking coffee to have a mental mise en place about what do I need to do for the day.
That's a cool concept.
What do I need to accomplish? What order? What am I forgetting?
And is that like, are you journaling, or are you
no, just a
sitting
mental,
and reflecting?
And sometimes if it's a really busy day, I bring out the notepad.
But you pause. You start the day with
pause and
intentional thinking.
Yeah. And then it depends day to day what my routine is. But I'll go by, like this morning I had a 7:30 a.m. Paris coffee shop construction meeting. Then I'm with you guys. I'll go by Pope. I'm planning on spending tomorrow half the day with a guy that we're trying to bring up as chef de cuisine, who is kind of that culinary person. I'm going to work 4 hours in the kitchen with him, which is rare that I get to spend
You're
kitchen
going to get
time.
in the kitchen,
Yeah, wow. Which is rare. So we're going to go through some test recipes, but it's not just to test recipes, but it's to talk to the guy and just go, where are you? Where you want to go? For what it's worth, this is where I think you ought to be doing, and to see his knife skills, his palate, his putting things together.
I bet he's going to be nervous. I feel like I would be nervous.
No,
it's like when I play shows and every once in a while a really good guitar player will show up and I'm like, oh, normally I'm fine.
Oh, but it's rarely do I get invited to dinner because they're afraid to cook.
Yeah. That was a question I was going to ask. Yeah. Are you kind of like ruined for restaurants? Like
Ruined.
When you go in, are you like hyper?
It depends on the restaurant.
Yeah.
If it's a restaurant that we have a concept like, or if it's someone that purports to be whatever, fine dining French, blah, 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 then I go in with critical eye.
Yeah.
Now, if it's a just down and dirty, we are what we are, I just enjoy. And I think it's like Mexican food. You don't go in going, well, they should do their sauce like this. Mexican food is one of those regional things that, depending on where you grew up, what part of the country you were in, your back, there's so many different kinds of Mexican food. So you go in there enjoying it, trying to see their point of view or their perspective. The same thing with diner food. And to me, it's enjoyable of just trying to understand who these people are and what they're trying to put on the plate. Now, if it's somebody trying to say, we've got the finest steak in town, I'm a ranch guy. I was president of the Ector County 4-H. I can butcher a whole hog or a whole steer, and I can cook the best steak. And I understand where beef comes from. So when they say this is blah,
like,
blah, 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 I go, no, guys, BS. So it depends.
Okay.
And the same thing with service. And I'm not a snooty, I want white tablecloth, the guy sitting there with his nose in there. But I do want attentive, good service.
You have high expectations.
Yeah.
I read something about a Martha Stewart story.
Yeah.
Can you tell me that's?
Oh,
did you boss Martha Stewart around like some?
Who told you this? No, there.
It's like about potatoes.
No, somebody. I was doing the Riata restaurant in downtown Fort Worth.
Okay.
And a friend of ours from California was a food editor with Martha Stewart living, and this is back in the 90s. And I got a call one day because they knew our connection with Martha, and they said they want to do, and it was Martha Stewart Living, the magazine. She wants to come out and do a Martha Stewart Living in Marfa. So we went out, we were doing the food for that, and I think my brother was there, but whatever. But I had gotten in there early. I was directing no, I take it back. I had a gig in Fort Worth or Austin, and they had started production early, food prep. So they flew me out, and I walked in the kitchen, and food was happening all around, and I was panicked that it wasn't up to our standards. And I walked over to the stove, and there were potatoes on the stove for a potato salad being cooked. And I said, damn it, y'all better have started those in cold water, because what happens if you start them in hot, they disintegrate. And a woman turns around, Martha, and she said, yes, they were. I did them.
That's awesome. I think that's a story I read.
That's awesome.
That's good. Okay, I'm gonna hit you with a couple more.
Yeah.
If you could go back and give your younger self any bit of advice, what would it be?
That's a tough one, because I don't regret any of my crazy and haphazard coming up. To be patient and calm and live in the moment more, instead of worrying about your next move. To embrace not just the work aspect of it, but actually slow down a little bit and enjoy life a little bit more. You get so wrapped up in all your moves, career-wise and business-wise, and I've learned that lesson in my older life, but is take up golf, run, do something, and cherish your friendships.
Cherish your friendships. That's good. That's really good. What's next?
Get Paris Coffee Shop open.
Okay, that's the main.
That is the deal.
Okay.
I've got some little side projects going.
You have a lot of side hustles. We didn't talk about any of the side hustles.
Yeah.
Give us a quick rundown on the side hustles.
My dad was a real estate guy, little developer, construction, and I've always loved the construction process. And I think that's what I love about doing restaurants, hotels, is it's not just once they're open, but I love the design and the build process. So I've always done little real estate. Like through the years, every house I've lived in, we bought an old house, gutted it, renovated it. I just love that process. It not just the physical part of building the wood, the nails, but the design part of it. So I've always done, like 411. I did that as a real estate move, and then went in there and jazzed it up, thinking this is such a cool space. You add value to it by the design and what you put into it. So several years ago, I've partnered with some different guys, but we build houses.
Oh, cool. Okay.
So I've got.
You're actively building houses right now.
Yeah, we have three going up right now.
In all your spare time, I have like these 20 restaurants and 20 hotels.
No, I've got good partners. I've got good partners. But so doing that, and then
in Fort Worth.
In Fort Worth.
Oh, cool.
So I've got the 411 property was our shop, welding shop, wood shop, and machine shop. We bought another property over in River Oaks that I'm still kind of building out, and
another shop.
Oh,
okay, cool.
But for all the woodworking and
I've taken up a lathe turning bowls.
Yeah, I've seen some of your bowls,
dude.
I take a stump and like make a bowl out of it.
Yeah, I'll buy. There's Birdall Sawmill in Lockhart that east of Austin, that I'll go to Birdall. I'll buy big, and I say a stump. It's like a 30 inches around by 6 feet long.
Weighs like hundreds of pounds.
Yeah, and I'll truck them to the shop here in Fort Worth, and with chainsaw cut those down into blanks, put it on the lathe, and then turn bowls.
Oh, that's cool.
Turn different things. I'd always grown up as doing woodworking through my father, and I've always been intrigued by lathes. So I was going, before I invest in a big lathe, I need to take a lesson or see if I really like it. So I started researching turning wood lessons, looked at Dallas, Fort Worth, nothing, Austin, nothing, statewide.
Not many people do that or know how to do that.
But I was going, just little, non-consequential classes. So I found this guy out of England that was teaching classes, intense 4-day class.
In England?
No, in the States.
Oh, in the States, okay.
4-day classes, only 4 students, and I went, yes, I'm going to sign up. It turns out it was in Las Vegas. He was teaching a class in Vegas and fell in love with a girl in Las Vegas and moved to Las Vegas. So I went home and I told partner James and then young Chris, I said, what do y'all think about going to Vegas for a few days? Yeah, that'd be fun. So I signed us all up. And so we stayed at the Bellagio and took classes during the day, learning how to use a lathe and turning wood. And then we'd go to out to eat. And I mean, it was a great experience.
That's cool. Yeah.
And I came back and bought a lathe, and I'm hooked. I'm addicted.
What do you do with the bowls?
Give them away, or I've got shelves of them. It's just it's a mental thing, and growing up through my mother, we did quite a bit of sculpting, clay, wax, even did some bronzes and painting. So I'm not a great artist, but it's a release from our artistic.
It's kind of like cool. Like yoga. You you get to unplug, and you're sitting there grinding on this thing.
Yeah, and I can lock the door, crank the music, and nobody's in my ear. Turn the phones off. Yeah. It's that's a healthy practice to have those type of outlets. Yeah, I think that's huge.
All right.
Do you have any other questions?
I got apply yourself, be a part of a community, and give back. Create a unity of experience within a restaurant. There's no change when there's no change. Yeah. Embrace the numbers. Those are some of my, and then humility. Those are some of my key takeaways from today. Those are some good stuff right there.
Yeah, some good
nuggets. Good nuggets. My words of wisdom I'm keeping.
Well, Lou, this was man, I have been excited for this for a long time. So I appreciate you.
Yeah. I appreciate you guys inviting me. This was fun. I could talk about restaurants and creativity and just kind of that whole thing all day long.
Yeah.
I mean, it's what I live.
Yeah, well, you got a lot of wisdom to share.
Yeah.
And so part of this was hoping to inspire people who look at someone like you, like, he's done these restaurants. Could I ever do that?
Yeah.
Everyone has a story of how they started it.
Yep.
And to hopefully inspire and share some wisdom and kind of like, I'm excited for people to hear this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think we have the same boots, which makes me feel even cooler.
I love an ankle boot.
Yeah.
And I love these zip boots.
I mean, I was like, I think we have the same boots. That makes me feel.
Actually, I like those. Yeah.
Well, Lou, thanks for joining us. This is awesome. If people want to go check out, do you have a website like with all of your stuff, or
no? They can go to each individual.
Okay.
I am terrible. I don't carry business cards, Jamie.
You don't?
No.
I like that.
Oh, I respect that. I appreciate that.
Here, give me a coffee cup. Or a napkin. I'll give you my number.
Well, thanks for coming in. Appreciate the time, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see what you do with Paris.
That's an exciting project, and I'm exciting for everybody to come in.
Yeah, cool.
But thank you guys. This has been fun.
Yeah,
been good.
All righty. Congratulations, you made it all the way to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Stories with Soul. If you enjoyed the interview and like what you heard, please help us out and share, subscribe, and like anywhere you listen to podcasts. When you share and subscribe, it is insanely helpful and allows us to keep producing new episodes. You can always join us directly in the studio by watching the video version on our website, 6thAveStorytelling.com. Stories with Soul is brought to you by 6th Ave Storytelling, an organic marketing company building standout brands on the foundation of story. You're obsessed with your business, and we want to make the world obsessed with it too. Thanks for listening.